Hello everyone. Hello and welcome to ASEAN Pacific episodes. I'm Lokman Karadag, a Ph.D. student in the Department of Political Science at International Islamic University, Malaysia. I would like to make a brief introduction about the ASEAN Pacific episodes project for those who first time watching our programs. The program is created parallel to my academic studies, and I am to bring the intellectual knowledge about about the Asia and Pacific region on my YouTube platform. For this purpose, different topics about the region will be discussed with expert guests 2 days a week or 1 day a week. Please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on notifications to be notified upcoming events. I'm delighted to welcome you to a very special event entitled Geopolitics 2021, and it is therefore a really great privilege to host this event with special guests. Before we start program, I would like to introduce my guest to you. Dr. Maliha Zebakhan. Dr. Maliha is working as assistant professor at Department of International Relations, National University of Modern Language, Islamabad, Pakistan. Her area of research is foreign policy analysis and foreign policy decision making, maritime affairs, maritime security, and all dimensions of blue, including blue economy and blue diplomacy. She takes pride to design and introduce courses on maritime-related areas and MPhil, MSCUS, and BC laws for the first time in any public sector university of Pakistan. She is affiliated with the Institute of Policy Studies, Islamabad, as a non-resident research fellow and provides consultancy on policy matters regarding the maritime domain and its issue areas to different organizations. My other guest, Dr. Masashi Okuyama. Masashi got his Ph.D. from the University of Reading, UK. He is senior fellow in International Geopolitical Institute, Japan, and a lecturer at Aoyama Gakuin University in Tokyo. He regularly teaches at the staff colleges of Japan Self-Defense Forces. His publication in Japanese, including Geopolitics, and has been translated several dozens of books into Japanese, such as John Mearsheimer's Tragedy of Great Power Politics. This is my guess. Let's begin with the most basic question that guides the lecture. So what is the geopolitics? First, I would like to go to the Maliha. Maliha, what is the geopolitics? What is the foundation and origin of geopolitics? What can you tell us on geopolitics? Here you are, please.
Thank you very much, Lokman. Thank you very much for inviting us for this program. And that basic question that is always ignored question, one of those questions which we do not give enough attention to. Geopolitics is a common ground where geography affects policy-making choices of the states. These choices can be about domestic policies or foreign policies, or both of them. But geopolitics should be considered as a discourse as well as foreign policy strategy as well. Because if we ignore this area, that means that we are not going to do justice with our policy-making process of the state. And if we talk about geopolitics, being academician, I should say that the geopolitical theories, they always need to be in focus whenever we are going to teach these courses to our students, or even we are using this discussion as our theoretical debate. If we talk about geopolitical theories, there are several theories which are important, but to me, the most important theories should be considered given by Mahan and Mackinder. Both of these theories give us a clear perspective how to deal the spatial dimension of the policy making and spatial dimension of geography. How do we deal with the politics on the land, and how do we deal with the politics which is happening in the seas? So in that case, we find our guidance in these two approaches. no matter there are several other approaches which are very important, but being basic approaches, finding their roots in these two, I consider these two theories quite relevant and important.
Yes, Dr. Masa, what is your observation on geopolitics science pre-Cold War and World War One, World War Two? What's your observation and experience about the geopolitics?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I have to. I really appreciate that invited your show and Lokman and Dr. Maliha. Thank you very much, and I really honored to talk with you guys. And my expertise on the geopolitics, I did my PhD back in around 10 years ago, and my perspective is quite similar to what Dr. Maliha just told us. Geopolitics is about something about international relationship and geography and foreign policy kind of combined, right? Then always there's at the center. Of course, there's a geography, but geography itself always considered by human being, right? So always there's a human being in the center, and how this person, human being, think about their environment and how to do strategically conquer or use the land and ocean. So there's always interaction between geography and state and foreign policy combined. Then that phenomena overall we call geopolitics. Well, at least I call geopolitics.
I would like to ask about the question, because of the geopolitics is a really enormous and enduring terms in international relations and political science. Yeah. My question will be, what is the relation of geopolitics and of the using as a terms during the Nazi Germany,
okay,
in the Hitler perspective?
Right. So that era of the geopolitics is quite a dark era of the geopolitics. Of course, there's always any state, from the beginning of the era, beginning of the human being, right? Every state, every group of people, I should say, try to use the geopolitical idea always. You have to consider how to make the community safe and etc. How to how to prevent the enemies coming to land. Always they have to think about geopolitically. But in that sense, Germany around 19th century, they started using the geography part really strongly about it. But after the 1930s, 40s, right, Germany suddenly used the geopolitical idea too much, actually, excessively. Okay, they said that geography determined the fate of the country or fate of the state. So they put too much emphasis on that, and actually they failed that. Then after that, the US came and we are the winner. And Germany did all the things that the Germany did, the really bad things. And they tried to kill the idea of the geopolitics itself. But actually, the really ironical part is that after Germans gone, not its ideology of the geopolitics gone. US, because they're really expansive world empire in the south, they inherited the geopolitical idea of the Nazi Germany. Not all of them, but part of them they inherited. So there's a kind of continuation from the German geopolitics to US geopolitics, I should say. Yeah.
The last question, Masa, for you. How can we define geopolitics from 1945 to the present? What kind of evolution the geopolitics on the geopolitics terms take place?
That's a great question. Then my answer, my definition when I was doing a PhD I came up with a one really more neutral type of the definition of the geopolitics. Just simply, I just stated uh, strategic strategic aspect of the international relations, interacting more in terms of geography. That's what I define as geopolitics in my PhD thesis. So I try to be more natural, neutral in a way, to look at the international relations.
With Maliha, yes, I would like to a little bit also talking about the Mahan strategy and McKine, the heartland and superiority of the sea. How can we define, during the Britain, the most of scholars in international relations were talking about the Great Britain. They say the rise of Britain to the world power was due to the control of the sea. What changed from that time of Britain control of the sea and today? What's your observation, Maliha?
Lokman, to me, Mahan sea power, that is quite relevant even in these days. We cannot minus it from our politics. International relations is revolving more around relations in the oceans. That is about commanding and controlling of the seas, of the oceans. Though oceans are global commons, but global flows are one dynamic due to which we have to put our focus on that side. On the other hand, if we look at heartland, even Mackinder, to me, if I try to be very honest and neutral in that regard, I see that even Mackinder was not contented with his own approach. He gave the idea in 1904, revised it in 1919, and then another revision in 1943. That means that he was not even satisfied with his own approach. He was thinking all about resources rich areas and how to keep that resource rich area safe from other actors or external pressures. But if we look at sea power tells us how to extend our foreign relations on the basis of our domestic power, which is giving power to the state in form of its coastal line and the assets which are there in the maritime zones. So I see that Mahan sea power is quite relevant in this era. And if we look at that theory, all six elements are one by one absolutely relevant to these things which are happening in current era. In our contemporary politics, we are seeing all those things very active.
Maliha, I would like to little bit come to today. In your observation and experience, what are the regional and global implications of the geopolitics of the Indian Ocean and the emergence of the Indo-Pacific region?
Right. So, if we talk about regional and global implications of whatever is happening in Indian Ocean region, and another part which you have mentioned is Indo-Pacific Strategy, which is happening in this region, and on the base of that, one geopolitical entity is being emerged as Indo-Pacific Ocean region. To me, with this emerging geopolitics, I see that competition will be increased. The incoming days, and even recently, we see that competition among states is increasing. Number of stakeholders are increasing, either state actors or non-state actors. They are increasing. They are coming more to this side, this special dimension of geopolitics, which has been ignored previously. The ocean side that is being crowded now. We see that there are extra regional actors in form of USA and China in Indian Ocean. And now, if we look at the Red Sea, we are seeing that even Russia is being stationed there in Sudan. That means that there are three great powers there in this region already, and there are regional powers which are already there. They have their own sentiments. Some of times they have convergence, some of times they have divergence. There are enmities. There is competition. But as well as the competition is related, I see that even cooperation is going to happen more in that area. Because seas and oceans are global commons, and we cannot afford any sort of violent conflict in these oceans. There would be competition, there would be increased arms race in terms of naval capabilities, but we cannot afford any sort of war in our oceans. There might be some fun ops, there might be some activities, occasional accidents, there might be some sort of strategic maritime terrorism, because I call it strategic maritime terrorism because if some state or non-state actor plans one terrorist activity with certain goals, and that terrorist activity takes place in that region, that can cause some crisis there. But even that crisis would be for limited time period, because that is global common. We cannot harm that environment which is there for all of us, because if the trade going through the Indian Ocean region is stopped for even for few days, we see that there would be crisis. We cannot forget Suez Canal issue. So that is the thing that due to which we see that the things which are happening are quite important. But to me, there is one negative factor which is happening and which would happen more. That is militarization of these oceans. Indo-Pacific Ocean region is emerging as a political entity, but I do not believe that it would be a permanent feature. That is a strategy only. Indo-Pacific should be considered as a strategy, but not a permanent feature, because that is one part of social construction. Just like Asia Pacific, we have been talking about Asia Pacific, and now we are switching from Asia Pacific to Indo-Pacific. That means that is more like a social construction, and with the passage of time, there might be emerging more regions on the basis of their geopolitical location and due to their importance. So we cannot consider that it would be a permanent entity in this oceanic area. Rather, we should discuss it as Indo-Pacific strategy of different countries.
When we're talking about the Indo-Pacific strategy, what kind of the differences and similarities between the Indo-Pacific concept and the Asia-Pacific concept? What was changed?
Okay, if we use this perspective, I see that Asia-Pacific was...
So everything because of containment of China?
No. If we talk about Asia Pacific, that was not entirely about China's containment. That was about emergence of new economies. I consider them their urge to improve their economic condition, and they just took those steps. They gave the models due to which we have seen that their economies have improved. But that was not about containing China or doing anything else. That was about improving their own economic sustainability. And the second thing which has been there in Asia Pacific was its relation with the great powers. Even the countries in Asia Pacific have never been into big sort of engagements with China, violent engagements or conflict sort of engagements. There have been limited conflicts there in South China Sea or overall China Sea, but I do not see that Asia Pacific strategy or that approach was entirely about China. And if we look at Indo-Pacific strategy, that is again, China factor is one cornerstone, but we cannot say that that is all about Chinese containment, because Indo-Pacific strategy has a different sort of combination of national interest of states coming from different sides. That is not only about US Indo-Pacific strategy. That is not only about India's Indo-Pacific strategy. That there are so many stakeholders now. France gave its Indo-Pacific strategy in 2018. Then Germany gave its Indo-Pacific strategy in 2020. All those strategies or all those things are about their own national interest. Yes, India is cornerstone. Yes, China is one cornerstone. Yes, there might be some reservations in the minds of policymakers regarding China's robust engagements in the world and its development. And indeed, that is such a big step which India has taken in the form of Belt Road Initiative, not only in this Indo-Pacific region, but across the whole world. We cannot forget that being an academician, I call that policy a smart move. Basically, that is combination of hard power and soft power both. China has not only expanded its Belt Road Initiative as economic connectedness, but that interconnectivity of the region that is based on economy and culture, and political ingress is one additional benefit which is being gained by China. But Indo-Pacific strategy should not be taken as just containment of China, but that is one cornerstone, one point in that, but that is more about national interest of all the states.
When we're talking about the militarization of these strategies, I would like to come back to the history, Masa.
Yeah.
What kind of the geopolitical evolution take place during the Cold War and pre-Cold War, especially around Japan and Northeast Asia generally?
Okay. Right. Basically, it's based on as Dr. Maliha told us. It's about the Mahan's the idea of the sea power was really significant force behind the Japan and the U.S. Control of the Pacific Ocean, one big area, and that one later developed to the Asia Pacific region, and now became to the Indo-Pacific area, right? So this phenomenon, it's actually what the Dr. Mali has told us is really quite correct. That it's not about the containment of the China. It's just one cornerstone. I totally agree with that. But the problem is every country now depends on this Indo-Pacific idea in terms of their own social construction. That's really interesting part, because Japan, if you think about Japanese self-defense forces people or security related people, Indo-Pacific, how about this idea? And everybody thinking that, oh, this is about containing China. See the problems, and everybody thinking, okay, let's involve India or that kind of things. But still, their main focus is against China. So that Indo-Pacific social construct is a social construct. Japanese government, they are thinking, from my perspective, they're thinking that this strategy involved everybody around the Indo-Pacific area, but this is the main weapon for the security of Japan to contain China. So the cornerstone is everywhere, but actually, from Japanese perspective, it's about containment of China, especially deterring China, their expansion to the ocean. Oh, let's stop them. So that kind of sentiment there. So it is quite interesting to you pointed out that the social construct. Yes.
But today, I think when we look at especially in the East and South China Sea, and the US side, really more than the social construction, the strategies seems to militarization of the ocean and seas.
Yeah, exactly.
Hope it can be changed. I have another the question about the geopolitics, and now we're talking about the superiority of sea on land. When we look at the population of humanity, person 90 of population living on land, but the person 70 of Earth planet consists of the water.
Yeah.
How can we evaluate the in importance of this different, like the Mahan and the Heartland strategy? How can we separate the importance of these two observation or?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the difficult question that the geopolitical theorist has to face. But actually, when you look at the business part, or more liberal kind of perspective, if you put it that way, then when you get the ocean, who has a strong control on the ocean, they dominate, or I shouldn't say dominate, but they have a strong advantage on the business dealing, especially on the merchant actually, I should say, how can I say that, the business dealing on the sea is quite more efficient in terms of making the value. For example, the oil tanker, right? Japan or East Asian country needs a lot of oils from the Iran or Iraq or Saudi Arabia. Then, if you put the pipeline on land, that's going to be the impossibly expensive. But if you have a big tanker, like a 500,000 tons tanker or something, that's more cheaper and easier to movable, and at the same time, it's a more value and a more heavier one. You can carry that one. So when you have if your country want to do the business dealing, right? You want to make money, and that's sea surfing business dealing is quite essential for the development of the country in terms of the business. Then come to the Mahan's theory, right? If you get the sea, then you control the world. So the ocean is still, even though there are a lot of people on the 70% or 60% of the population on the land, but still, if you want to make money out of it, you control the ocean is more easier way to do that, right? So that's the like part of the answer I'm thinking, yeah.
Related to the importance of the sea, I would like go to Maliha. Maliha, what's your observation of the geopolitical implication of the port projects that China has begun to build around the world in the context of the Sino-US competition? How we can position the port project of China's across the planet, from Latin America and to the Middle East and Gulf?
Lokman, as I have told previously, that to me, Belt Road Initiative altogether is one very smart strategy of China, because despite working on all the moves which have been having in the world, China took the path which is entirely different. US has always been a bit offensive. US politics has always been essentially power politics, but whatever China is doing, that is about geoeconomics, that has used economy and geography, and that China has connected these two parts very smartly, basically. Now, if we look at the port projects of China and Chinese investment in the world, I would say that is across the world. That is not only in one continent. That is the project which is connecting continents with each other. In this way, China has increased not only its own benefits in terms of economy, in terms of trade, in terms of commerce, in terms of its own banking, but it has given chance to its own culture and civilization to expand, as well as it has gained a certain sort of political ingress in the countries in which it is investing in their ports. Now, if we look at this port infrastructure, we see that the port infrastructure starting from Asia. If we look at Asia, there are different ports which have been either built completely by China or been updated or modified by China. Start from Myanmar, then come to Bangladesh, then you go to Sri Lanka, then Pakistan, and then if you enter in Africa, that is again one part of Indian Ocean. So if we look at Africa, we see that there are 46 ports which have been constructed by China or which have been modified by China. Now, what do you think? What would happen if China has invested a lot in Africa? China has invested a lot in entire blue economy. That is more than that is more than 1.2 trillion blue economy in which China has invested. And if we look at foreign direct investment of China, that is more than 11 billion. Now, if $11 billion are being invested in the world for development of infrastructure, that is going to give them big benefits in terms of economy, in terms of political ingress, and in terms of its soft projection to the world. So that is one clever thing which is there. And now, if there is one more part which we are ignoring whenever we are talking about geopolitics, I see that the coming years would be the days in which we would see Arctic Ocean becoming one big economic hub as well as one cold arena of coldest war.
Coldest.
That yes, because in that that would not be Cold War only. That would give new, that would bring out new kinds of different approaches and different theories and different combinations of convergence and divergence. Changing of pattern of these relations would emerge in the coming days. Right now, we are seeing that Russia and China together, maybe in the coming days, Russia and USA would become one part or one party in Arctic Ocean, though they would be on different poles in the other world, but maybe Arctic Ocean would change their mind. Who knows about that? Because the things which are happening in Europe as well, because China has invested in Scandinavian countries, China is giving them land bridges, China is giving them maritime corridors, China is giving them a full-fledged approach or strategy through which they can improve their economies, especially Scandinavian countries, which were smaller in size with limited economies, which were facing a lot of environmental hazards and degradation. Now they are seeing that climate change in terms of melting of Arctic would come in their own benefit. So things are changing in the world. Geopolitics are changing. That is one. That is not one stagnant concept. Rather, that is quite dynamic. Things are changing, and we need to look in terms of between the lines. We need to interpret those things which are happening there in which are hidden right now, and we need to look beyond the things which are there right now. What would happen in the coming days? We need to think about that. This is how I see this port infrastructure and China's strategy.
In this context, the question for both of you, in this context, when we compare the Indo-Pacific strategy led by United States and the 21st century Maritime Silk Road initiative led by China, when we compared both of these, the huge projects from the east coast of the United States to the west coast of the Africa and the Persian Gulf and even Arctic, can we say the United States lack of the economic part of this project?
Can I answer that question?
Yes, Masa, please.
Okay. Well, my point. Okay, I'm kind of my answer is quite related to the Dr. Maria said, but actually, the China's OBOR. I mean, what was 21st century Silk Road project, right? It is really grand scale, and it's, I know they're really doing a really smart move, but my concern from this the grand strategy of the China is always come back to the Mahan's theory on the first chapter of the sea power upon the history, right? Those influence on the sea power upon the history in the 1890s. That book described the most worrying part of the China from my perspective. What does that mean is that China is becoming too fast, too big, and doing two big things at the same time. So can they manage this project properly? For example, Mahan said that the sea power and the land power, the two big power, you cannot concentrate on just two of them at the same time. It's impossible. Which means that the sea power, if you go into the sea power, just focus on the sea power. It will be better because your nation has a certain amount of the resources, right? So if you want to focus on the sea power, that's fine, which is US is doing actually. But China on this OBOR, right? They doing in the Indo-Pacific Ocean strategy expanding to the Africa. That's fine, totally fine. But at the same time, they try to get into the more inside of the land, including the Pakistan and Tajikistan and the Kazakhstan and Russia, and that was really worrisome for me because as a strategic point of view, you cannot, you cannot beat the two birds with one stone. which is impossible. So they are doing more overstretch. That's what I'm worried about on this perspective. Yeah, thank you.
And not only two projects, we can and the place space Silk Road, the third.
That's true. So can you do that? All the things I really worry about. If I were in Beijing right now, I try to say, Mr. Xi Jinping, please, you should limit your activity to maybe just focus on the sea, or maybe just focus on entirely on land. Which either way, you should be limit yourself. Otherwise, it's going to be hubris and overstretch of the imperial overstretch. That's going to be followed. Yeah.
If China focused only one way, for example, focused only on the sea, can successfully compete with the United States?
That's the problem. Okay, I really don't know about that way. But if you get into the Indo-Pacific Ocean, the problem for the U.S. is, okay, we cannot beat the China on the sea, then we can get into the inside of the land. That's what they think about it. If they're a really good strategy in strategies back in Washington, D.C. So I don't know. Even either way, if Beijing can manage the one resources to the sea or land, that'll be fine. But seems to be they doing the both of them at the same time. So that's really worrisome from the strategic perspective.
I think that us and the global hegemon power, United States, did successfully this job.
Yeah,
on,
because they
on sea and on land.
Yeah,
of course,
no. Actually, they kind of failing right now. In just the Lokman just told me yesterday. I mean, last week, because they expended too much on Afghanistan, right? They pulling out some troops and their force, right? So they're retreating from the land actually, because they put too much footprint on the Eurasian landmass. So now they try to little bit, getting back to the ocean first. Then let's focus on the more ocean. Probably because we are sea power, not land power. So they are kind of, Biden administration or the Trump administration before that. They were kind of thinking about more a little bit getting back to or retreat to the sea power, not as a land power. So they're calculating which balance they should take.
Might have a question for you. Now we are talking about the owner of the projects, the United States and China. Let's little bit talking about the regional countries like the Pakistan and Japan. What kind of implication on these countries from the Indo-Pacific strategy, and actually what kind of the Indo-Pacific strategy, what kind of implication has on the regional countries, or the China's 21st century maritime Silk Road implication on the Pakistan?
Dr. Maria.
Lokman, this question is quite relevant with the current era developments. If we talk about 21st century maritime Silk Road, we see that China has engaged Pakistan in terms of Gwadar, because Gwadar is the port which is connecting that belt and that road, both segments of Belt Road Initiative. Gwadar is the connecting point basically. And if we look at the implications of this project as well as the Indo-Pacific strategy, which is obviously there by USA, starting from whole of the Pacific, including whole of the Pacific and as well as Indian Ocean. Whereas if we look at India's Indo-Pacific strategy, that is starting from Western Pacific and that goes again till the end of Pacific on the western side of Indian Ocean basically. Like Western Pacific to Indian Ocean's western side. That is India's strategy. Pakistan and India have been locked in enmities since beginning. We have been seeing phases in which we were engaged in hot war. Otherwise, we are having a stagnant sort of relations in which we do not see much of development in terms of strategy We usually have our forces engaged on Kashmir side, in which there is one permanent party is United Nations observer group as well. And when we look at Chinese investment in Pakistan through MSRI, Maritime Silk Road Initiative, we see that that trouble or that stress between these two countries, India and Pakistan, that has increased. India, though it does not have anything, um, uh, not anything, but it does not have much to do regarding the Maritime Silk Road Initiative because, again, sea is a global common. It cannot stop uh, China to move in those waters. It cannot stop USA to move in those waters. All these waters are for navigation for everyone. Even if a country has its own territorial sea, even in those waters, states have the right of innocent passage. That means these areas, the oceanic space, that is not going to be a big problem for each other. Rather, the problems are quite limited in those areas in terms of illegal fishing or things like that, which are there coming under blue crime, or the things which are there deteriorating the marine resources. However, its implications we can see on the land because there have been certain things which we have put in front of the world because there has been uh, interference from the side of Iran and from Afghanistan, about which we have given proofs to the world that there has been Indian involvement in those activities. And another thing which has been there since decades now, that is Afghanistan issue. Afghanistan is our backyard. We see that US has been engaged in our backyard. If our backyard is not peaceful, how can we stay peaceful? If there is happening something in our backyard where people are used to come and go because they have tribal ties, they have relations with each other, even they have gone married with each other, and their families are in one country or the other country. In that case, we cannot stay. We cannot stay ignoring them or this situation. If US leaves Afghanistan, like it has announced, but personally I do not see that US could be able to leave Afghanistan as easily as it is being mentioned, despite all the pressure which is being put on USA by Taliban. US could not be able to leave Afghanistan. However, it wants to leave it now. Similarly, USA wants to leave Middle East as well because that part is also engaging its more than its expectation. Uh, that is dividing its attention from the sea side of the world. And if US remains engaged on the land, there might be more problems for US governments, this government and even the coming governments. Because right now, if you remember Mearsheimer, the emergence of challenger that can cause war, and challenger is there. China is a challenger to the hegemony. China is a challenger to the status quo. So if US stays engaged in that area, that part of Indo-Pacific strategy, if we look Indo-Pacific strategy in terms of oceanic convergence, we see that US has strong strategic partnership with India. Strategic partnerships always give edge to both partners because they are not that is not mandatory for each other uh, to move according to others wish. However, we see that there might be some sort of problems in these two countries, India and USA, but overall, until now, we are seeing that US and India have been engaged with each other in strong strategic partnership, giving both of them giving a big edge, and that can be a thing for Pakistan to stay concerned, and that might be one point due to which Pakistan might need to look at China more than before. Because if there would be military or strategic sort of engagement of US and India, in that case, there would be very precarious balance of power. We cannot afford to ruin that balance of power which is there in Indian Ocean region. And whoever has that Indo-Pacific strategy, US, India, Germany, Japan, or in the coming days, we see that European Union is also wants to come in that group, which is giving Indo-Pacific strategies. Everything is going to increase the number of stakeholders. Everything is going to increase the threats in that region as well as challenges in that region. And that would be a big fact that the regional actors which have different sort of engagements with each other, different sort of relations with each other. Like you cannot ignore Iran, which has been there, and with which US does not have strong relationship. And despite all the strategic partnership of India and USA, Iran has strong relation with India as well. That is one part of reality. We cannot ignore that part of reality. And similarly, we see that the engagement of USA within Saudi Arabia, which is one strong actor in Indian Ocean, that is another story. And if we look at Red Sea politics, there is a different sort of geopolitics which is being emerged in that region. So there are different sort of regional implications which are there of all these strategies which are there in this region, in Indian Ocean region as well as Indian Pacific Ocean region.
In this regard, Masa, when we turn our face to the South and East China Sea, what kind of the geopolitical implication of rapidly increasing China and militarization of South China Sea, what kind of the implication on Japan and other stakeholders in the South China Sea and East China Sea?
Yeah. One perspective we have to have as a presumption is that from Chinese perspective, East China Sea and the South China Sea is the same thing because they facing all of the ocean just in front of them, right? For them, it's just a kind of frontier, but just a kind of backyard for them. So they don't want to be encroached by the other country, especially like the US and Japan, like a more, I should say, major powers or something. But anyway, so in front of their backyard, there's an ocean. This we call Mackinder called the marginal sea, or even Nicholas Speakman told us that this is not the marginal sea. It's just the outside of the ocean, the belt, and they call what's that? Asianic Mediterranean. They call. He called this area, especially around South China Sea, as an Asiatic Mediterranean. It's not just the Mediterranean as in Europe, no, but actually including Philippines and Taiwan, and not in Japan, but the more getting to the Australia, that vast area, but with some countries with small islands, including Indonesia, right? That area is going to be contentious. That's what this Nicholas Speakman around 1942 he called. Then that area is going to be the contest between China and US. And actually now that is what's happening over there. Because the importance of the rimland for the Speakman's point of view, that area just outside the ocean side, it's kind of like a belt from the outside. That area, including East China Sea and South China Sea, right? This ocean in front of China, for them, China is the area to defend. So that area, China tried to grab it to expand it to the outside. Just exactly what the US did on the Caribbean Ocean around 19th century. So the mechanism for the expansion is first begin from the East China Sea and South China Sea. They secure, right? The land power country always try to secure in front of the ocean, like India did. India tried to occupy. Well, they cannot occupy, but they try to occupy the Indian Ocean, right? So they want to be the major power in the Indian Ocean. From Chinese perspective, of course, sure, they want to expand. They want to secure, and they try to expand. They try to control the area just around the Chinese mainland. So that area is going to be the really contentious. So I don't know. Like many people say that China is not going to be expanded to the South China Sea or East China Sea, but clearly they have an incentive to try to control as much as possible in order to become global power. Then we have to control just the ocean just in front of them. So that mechanism and incentive is quite strong. That's my point.
As United States did in Western Hemisphere, like
Yeah,
John
exactly. Yeah,
about.
exactly. Because US did, and they became regional power, right? So in order to become the regional power, you have to control the ocean in front of you. That's the point.
So what is your prediction for the region and for China climbing to the top of the pyramid of global powers? What's your prediction for the next couple of years?
Yeah, well, nobody knows about it, but even the Beijing people doesn't know about what their intention is. That's the problem, because always intention change, right? The political power struggle inside of. But all I can say is the from Taiwan or anyway the East China Sea. I guess one of the interesting point that we have to look at it right now is the ocean just around the South Korea. Okay, they call the ocean called Yellow Sea, right? That Yellow Sea is just outside of the Beijing and the Tianjin or somewhere area, and Korea is just outside of the ocean, the Yellow Sea, right? There's one spot that one small island called I don't know how they call, but the white something the island, which is South Korea.
Dotko Island?
I don't know the Baeknen or something. I forgot the name, but anyway, small or tiny small the island that South Korea occupied, just in front of the Chinese. I mean, Yellow Sea. Okay. That point is going to be another contentious point, as well as Taiwan. And so I don't know that any major power try to expand it to the outside world, the world, try to occupy just in front of the ocean always militarily. It's unfortunate, but they has to do. So my prediction is that either Taiwan or Senkaku Island or maybe South Korea's Baekmen Island or okay, we don't know. But anyway, they try to control, at least try to control those ocean around them first within 5 years or something. Yeah, that's my prediction.
Related to our topics, our subjects, the geopolitics. Geopolitics destroyed the many prediction of scholars since the 1900s. Someone say the geopolitics will finish, but today we can clearly see the many subtitles under the geopolitics, like such as the climate geopolitics, vaccine geopolitics, mass destructions, weapons geopolitics. In this regard, I would like to ask Masa about the nuclear power of North Korea and the geopolitical situation of Taiwan. Both of them in geopolitical context, how can we evaluate in the region? It is the implication of on the neighbor countries or global countries.
Well, the both of them is quite related in terms of the same point that I made just before. What is mean that's from Chinese perspective, it's a regional major power, right? The ocean in front of them, or in front of their backyard, right? Located North Korea and Taiwan. Taiwan, they're more sentimental for them because Taiwan is, from Beijing perspective, is a renegade state, right? So they try to want to occupy. But actually, the motivation behind is always same. All the major power or all the aspirational power wants to be a regional power, right? Regional hegemon. They automatically or they tend to try to get the control of North Korea and Taiwan. But problem is North Korea has a nuclear weapon, so China cannot control that. then what they want to do is, okay, at least they occupy the ocean just in front of them, and naturally Taiwan. But from Taiwan's perspective, okay, Taiwan's case, they don't want to do it more militarily. They want to be more covert way of subversion or political subversion, that kind of way. I don't think China cannot do the landing on the Taiwan or that kind of things, which is kind of impossible. So they try to do a more political way of doing that. Yeah.
We should know that also the both of countries are divided since the Cold War. China divided and the South Korea, North Korea. Little we come to today, Maliha. Now we have the geopolitics, waxing geopolitics. What you can say something about this, and or after that the climate geopolitics and the waxing geopolitics. There is the many subtitle now is available for the geopolitics. What can you say related to the pandemic situation and the geopolitics?
Lokman, I would mention that approach in which we say that level of analysis. To me, now all the policy making for the states, either domestic or foreign policy regarding this post-pandemic, I wish that would be post-pandemic era sometime soon, but right. That is more about the second image of the second level of analysis approach, in which we have seen that we have been forgetting the role of states for its own societies. If we have been having that strong connection between our state and society, and we have been having working on the health sector and all the research part of regarding the health and other
Oops.
As we have a little bit internet connection problem. Masa, can you continue please about the waxing geopolitics?
Waxing geopolitics.
Yes, waxing geopolitics. Now we can see, the Sino-US and different countries has different waxing and provides in order to explain their the political influence or power influence. What you can say, we can see a few countries today has developed their waxing.
Mm-hmm.
In the context of geopolitics, what's your observation?
Yeah, the one thing that is clear is that the U.S. has a still hegemonic power. For example, the other thing is that the P5, permanent 5 country, all of them except France, okay, they could come up with the COVID-19's the vaccines, right? So that's still there's a talking about something about the power itself. So there's a power structure itself. It is in the vaccines structure there. So the people, the country who has the more vaccine or original vaccine, right? They have a power to impose their soft power too. So it's not the hard power itself can create the new vaccine, can invent the vaccine. It's not that things, but still the power itself has something to do with related to the power structure of the world, and hard power can create the soft power, which means vaccine diplomacy. So U.S. come up with 3 vaccines or 2 vaccines or whatever, right? So that means they have still power, and they can do more soft power things. So hard power first, then you can use the soft power at the same time. Yeah, that my take is like this.
And Maliha, I would like to ask about the geopolitics of climate change, because directly has influence on our life climate change geopolitics. What's your observation? What's your prediction about the climate change? Could you hear me?
Climate change, Maliha?
Can you repeat your question?
Yes. I would like to ask about the geopolitics of climate change. In the Maliha has a connection. Masa, can you continue from here?
Okay, the climate.
Yes, can you hear us now? The geopolitics of climate change.
Masa, can you please repeat Lokman's question?
Climate change on the geopolitics.
Yes.
Okay, impact of climate change on geopolitics. Yes, that is one serious problem for all of us because climate change is a reality which we cannot ignore. There has
Malika got a connection problem.
Yes.
Yes, my connection is doing a lot of trouble for me. Is it okay now?
Yes.
No, okay. Yeah.
Okay. But for me, Lokman is all static. His picture is all frozen now.
Oh my God.
Masa,
it feels like you and I, we are having this dialogue.
You can continue.
Oh, no, she's frozen now.
Masa, can you...
Lost again?
Yeah, seems like it.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, can you hear me?
No, yeah, okay.
Okay. So I was talking about climate change, and it is changing the geopolitics because states need to think about it because that is all about sustainability. Either it is land or the ocean. We need to talk about sustainability. We need to talk about to take care of the ecosystem which is providing us with the resources, which is...
Oops. Oh my God.
Masa, can you continue, please?
Okay. Well, I don't have so many things to say about the climate change, right? Because I know it is happening. I should say. I mean, I have to admit that it is really happening.
In context of geopolitics, in context of
in terms of geopolitics, see the one crucial area for me, from my perspective, the most crucial point is melting of the ice cap, and then polar ice, because if they open up there, right, especially for Russia, that's really advantageous for them because there's another trade route. You can circumvent the Suez Canal, right? So geopolitics is not, of course, it's about occupation and area and that things. But what I really want to focus on, I really want to emphasize on the point of geopolitics is about route. Which route, which pathway you're gonna get through. Like from Pakistani perspective, is a Kashgar Pass or Khyber Pass is quite crucial road to take to get to the somewhere, right? For China, well, Malacca Strait is really crucial point of the choke point they have to go through. And from Russian perspective, if really happening of the climate change and the melting of the ice cap, then there are more opportunity for them to use the Northern Sea route for their advantage. So the business structure and the Russian power balance gonna be changed, and that's a really strong implication for from my perspective about the climate change on the geopolitics.
Melha, can you continue, please, on the geopolitics of climate change? Could you hear me?
She seems to listening, but no, I guess our signal is delayed.
Yes, signal is delayed, I think. Mas, at the end of our program, if Maliha is coming, I would like to get the book recommendation for the student of political science and international relations related to geopolitics.
Okay, it's an old book, but my perspective is quite influenced by this person. Can I? Whoa! Hold on. Which one? I should get in. I never expected that this happens. Please. Oh, please, Dr. Maliha, please just speak for me because I have to find a book on that.
In your memory, Jazz.
Yeah. For the students, yeah, that's very simple book. I have to introduce to you guys. It's on this Tragedy of Geopolitics, John Mearsheimer. Yeah, because I translated this book, and it's really hardcore realism and offensive realism. And some people might feel this theory is so offensive in a sense, but actually. It tells a lot about the classical geopolitics, which I studied and still I'm working on. And this tells something about another perspective that the classical geopolitics still matters. And this power perspective of international relations is quite useful in a sense to look at the international relations, current international relations. It's been almost 14 years. No. 20 years though. I mean, this book first published, but still, that a lot of perspective or the theory is quite relevant. So, get this book.
This is also translated by you into the Japanese language.
Yes, that's a great point, because if you can read the Japanese version, then I strongly recommend it to read my translation of the Great Geopolitics. Yes.
Maliha, can you hear us now?
And from my side, Lokman, I have one suggestion. That is one recent book written by Gerald Chan. That is about China's Maritime Silk Road, advancing global development. That is one good book. If someone wants to know about the current geopolitics, that would be a good guiding book for everyone. That is one interesting read. And if someone reads it, I think the concept about China's plan of global development, that becomes quite clear.
Cool. Another book. Sorry, I forgot to ask the show. Indo-Pacific Empire. Yeah, this is another great book. I'm gonna translate it later probably, and we'll see what's gonna happen.
Translate to the Japanese also.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, now we reach end of the program, more than 1 hour. Thank you very much, Maliha, and thank you very much, Masa. Hope we can meet in another program. Thank you very much for our audiences across the world. Please waiting and subscription to the channel for upcoming programs. This Asia and Pacific series will continue. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you very much, Lokman. Thank you. And thank you very much, Dr. Masa.
Thank you.
Thank you.